Some stories were never meant to be forgotten. Welcome to Whispers in the Shadows HQ, where every whisper tells a darker truth. For 3 long decades, a shadow stretched over the heart of Wichita, Kansas. It was a shadow with a name that struck terror into the community, a name whispered in fear: BTK. These 3 letters, an acronym for a horrifying signature: bind, torture, kill, represented a monster who moved unseen, a phantom who haunted the city's waking hours and its deepest nightmares. Between 1974 and 1991, this killer claimed 10 lives, leaving a trail of devastation and a community paralyzed by fear. Families were torn apart, and the city held its breath, wondering who could be next. The police were baffled, the public terrified. The BTK killer seemed to be a ghost, a malevolent force without a face or a name. But the most chilling part of this story isn't just the crimes themselves. It's the fact that the monster wasn't hiding in some dark, remote corner of the world. He was hiding in plain sight. Meet Dennis Rader. To his neighbors, he was a family man, a father of 2. To his congregation, he was the president of the Christ Lutheran Church Council. To the city of Park City, he was a compliance officer, a man who enforced the rules. He was ordinary. He was one of them. Rader led a life of mundane routine, a picture of suburban normalcy. He coached his son's Little League team, was a Cub Scout leader, and appeared to be a pillar of his community. No one suspected that behind this mask of respectability lurked a predator, a man who harbored dark, violent fantasies he was ruthlessly acting upon. The BTK killer didn't just crave violence, he craved attention. He reveled in the fear he created, and he couldn't resist taunting those who hunted him. He began a twisted correspondence with the media and the police, sending letters that detailed his crimes with chilling precision. In these letters, he gave himself the name BTK and took credit for the murders that had stumped investigators. He sent poems, word puzzles, and even dolls posed to mimic his victims' final moments. It was a cruel game of cat and mouse, a way for him to assert his power and intelligence over the entire city. He was an invisible hand, shaping the narrative of his own terror, and for years he seemed untouchable. Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, he vanished. After his last known murder in 1991, the letters stopped. The killings ceased. The city of Wichita began to breathe a tentative sigh of relief. Had he died? Moved away? Been incarcerated for another crime? For over a decade, the case went cold. The files gathered dust, but the memories and the fear lingered. The name BTK became a part of local folklore, a boogeyman story that was all too real. The community tried to heal, but the unanswered questions left a permanent scar. The phantom of Wichita had simply faded back into the shadows, leaving behind a legacy of terror and a mystery that seemed destined to remain unsolved. But a monster's ego is a fragile, insatiable thing. In 2004, on the 30th anniversary of his first murders, BTK resurfaced. He couldn't stand being forgotten. He sent a package to a local news station containing a victim's driver's license and a symbolic necklace. The game was back on. Rader, now in his late 50s, was once again taunting the police, eager to reclaim his title as the city's most feared figure. He sent more packages, more puzzles, more letters. He felt invincible, believing his intelligence was far superior to that of law enforcement. He was living his fantasy again, but this time technology had evolved, and his arrogance would become his undoing. In one of his communications, Rader asked the police a fateful question. Could he send them a floppy disk without being traced? In a calculated move, the police replied through a classified ad in the local paper, telling him it would be safe. It was a lie. Trusting their word, Rader sent a floppy disk to a local TV station. He believed he had erased the data, but forensic experts are meticulous. Buried deep within the disk's metadata was a digital breadcrumb. It pointed to the Christ Lutheran Church and was last modified by a user named Dennis. The net that had been cast for 30 years finally began to close. The lead was almost too good to be true. Investigators cross-referenced the church's members with the name Dennis and found their man, Dennis Rader, the church council president. The pieces fell into place with terrifying speed. They discreetly obtained a DNA sample from Rader's daughter from a PAP smear she had on file at a medical clinic. They compared it to the DNA evidence found at the 1974 Otero family crime scene. It was a match. On February 25, 2005, Dennis Rader was pulled over during his lunch break. The 30-year reign of terror was over. The ghost of Wichita finally had a face. What followed was not the denial of a cornered man, but a calm, detailed confession that stunned even the most seasoned detectives. Over 30 hours of interrogation, Rader recounted his crimes with no emotion, no remorse, just a chilling, matter-of-fact pride in his projects, as he called them. He spoke of his victims as if they were objects, part of a grand, dark fantasy he had been cultivating since childhood. He admitted to all 10 murders, solving cold cases that had haunted families for decades. The man who had lived a double life for so long finally merged his two worlds, revealing the monster he had kept hidden behind a friendly, ordinary smile. Dennis Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences, one for each life he stole. He will spend the rest of his days in a prison cell, a place where his dark fantasies can no longer harm anyone. The story of BTK serves as a horrifying reminder that evil doesn't always wear a monstrous face. Sometimes it wears the face of a neighbor, a father, a church leader. It's the quiet man down the street, the one you'd never suspect. It reminds us that the deepest shadows can exist in the most ordinary of places, and the most terrifying whispers can come from the people we think we know. Thank you for joining us in the shadows. If you found this story as chilling as we did, please like this video and subscribe to Whispers in the Shadows HQ for more tales that were never meant to be forgotten. Stay safe and always be aware of the whispers around you.